So I'm really excited to say I finally got my contractor license. A Washington State general contractor license number has finally been issued, and I'm officially licensed, bonded, and insured for actually the first time in my career. I've had several businesses as a landscaper, nurseryman, and gardener, whatnot, mostly in maintenance, in the landscape realm. I've done installations, design, and a lot of maintenance over the years, especially early on in my career, and it was licensed, but I never had gone the full stretch and gotten contractor license, bonded, insured, and really excited. So now at 46 years old, I'm finally official and feeling like I'm kind of at a place where I can actually start a real business. And so how did I get here? Like, what took me so long, right? Getting out of high school when I was 18, I had no career aspirations necessarily. I was so done with school. I had been a musician and really was into the alternative scene with music, and kind of stayed outside of sports and things like that. But I was really on the road path of hands-on work, tradesman kind of stuff. Really enjoyed being outdoors, and right upon moving out from my parents' house when I was 18 with my wife-to-be, I went from my parents' family business. I left that right off the bat and went to work at a wholesale plant nursery, which still to this day is operating. Back then it was really a small 2-3 person business. The manager and I and one other person worked there, and I just learned tons of stuff about plants, propagation, nursery sales, kind of the whole nursery gamut. I wore a hat of almost every department in that nursery when I worked there, just being such a small operation, which has grown to be one of the premier West Coast wholesale nurseries, still run by the same manager and owned by the same owner. That was a great experience for me, but I didn't last very long there because of the pay, and really had aspirations of kind of moving up in the world. I went to work outside of the nursery for the owner of the nursery as a gardener, and very quickly escalated down the path of working for the accountant, and then working for the accountant of the nursery and the owner of the nursery, and then working for a doctor who was friends with the accountant, and then from there, growing my business to a full-scale garden maintenance, landscape maintenance company, going to work for one of the doctor's friends, which actually became one of my main jobs for 7+ years. Worked for 2 families, generally one of them kind of borderlining, like an estate situation, where I was kind of the personal gardener in a way. I ran my own business, kind of worked full-time for a few families, did some side jobs, but for 7 years I was a really high-end maintenance landscaper, gardener, and fell into that for a while because the pay was so good. Bought a house nearby to my jobs, remodeled my house, completely flipped it, doubled my money, and became disillusioned after some time of that job because it was so monotonous. The same property for 7 years, generally speaking, although they had moved and remodeled and moved back to the same general property. But the maintenance and the monotony of the same thing over and over. I kind of an adventurous person. I like change a lot. So after a while, I was like, all right. In the interim, I had started to fall back to my love of my first horticulture job, which was nursery work. And I was like, hey, really my dream at the time was I want to run my own nursery. I want to have my own property, with my own mom and pop, nursery, and, live that lifestyle. And so I worked on starting a nursery while I was a landscaper on my brother's property. I had access to some land and was able to use my older brother's property for a while, and got going with the nursery. And for several years I was kind of juggling all my jobs, and eventually, lo and behold, right before my son was born, I quit my landscape work, which was prime income, secure job, great income, making great money hourly, and doing side jobs, that were, I was just killing it. And I was like, oh, starting a family, why don't I just quit my great jobs and start, and just work at my nursery full time, not really knowing and understanding, where I really was at with my business and how to grow it, and if I was actually going to succeed. I just adventurous spirit, I guess you could say, and following my dreams, and ended up having to relocate from my brother's property really quickly, as my son was just born, several months old. I got several days notice. I had to vacate my brother's property, completely move my nursery. I had nowhere to move it to. My home residence property is way too small, so we ended up having to uproot my family from home I had completely remodeled and made into a dreamy little, quarter-acre lot of paradise, and buy a home with some property, because that was really my only move I could make at the time, knowingly, from what I knew about and how to do things. So I ended up buying a nice piece of property, a little over a couple acres out in the country, where I could rebuild my nursery, and which took, oodles amount, money. Had to build a greenhouse, get the land all prepared, and also change business names, because I had a location specific business name, which I did again, like more than one time. It was like seriously not the best move in the world, trying to raise my son with my wife, juggling him in between our work hours, and me trying to get out for cold calls, driving around the whole Puget Sound region, showing off plants out of the back of my truck, trying to get people to order plants, trying to grow enough plants, to offer enough plants. Anyways, what a interesting struggle that was. And then on top of that, I got a harebrained idea to move to Oregon to kind of alleviate some financial strain that we were having with our property, and rebuilding my business, and also the fact that our son really had nobody in our family his age to grow up with. So we moved to Oregon, kind of on a hope and a prayer and a blind jump into the dark, really. and to be near my wife's sister and their daughter, so our son could grow up with somebody, in his age group, in the family, like in his generation. And we really hadn't had a lot of family help interaction living in Washington, so it was a great move for a while. I went to work with somebody I guess you could consider a mentor in my industry. I started specializing in ornamental grasses, which is something I was kind of drawn to and had chosen to be my my specialty, and was using his nursery for a while until he completely went bankrupt and ended up having to sell his property, and again having to relocate. So here I am, maybe, what am I on? I'm on my fourth move of my business within 2 years. One of them out of state move, ending up running my business on my third backup plan on my property in Oregon, in Estacada, Oregon, rebuilding a nursery, greenhouses, preparing the land, gaining new clients. I started doing contract growing, and this is, say, 2007. I had a great year, first year. I had a helper who was doing most of my propagation. Of course, at this time, I was just doing nothing but nursery work. There was no, landscaping. That was something I really left behind when my son was about 6 months old, when I had to leave my brother's property after I had just started my nursery business. So my only income was my nursery. Was doing okay financially, had a little money in the bank, but really had drained a lot of the resources with the move to Oregon and getting a house and nursery all set up. And raising a small child on really less than full-time income for both my wife and I at the time. And 2008 hit, and I had just really started feeling like I was getting somewhere. I had several contract grower, other businesses I was contract growing for. One in Canada, one in Idaho. They were pretty big contracts. I was filling my greenhouse and keeping it full constantly, pumping out, as much as I could, and was on the trajectory of like, hey, this could actually work. This could be a good thing. And 08 hit, and I lost all my contract jobs. I lost, the landscape businesses, the growers that I was, wholesaling to. They just folded. They went down to skeleton crews, and I was able to, sell off what I had been growing, got paid, but from there on out, it was like, hey, what am I gonna do, right? I had no clue that at the time that there was a housing bubble necessarily. I had bought and sold my own homes by owner, done quite well the first 2 times. Third house we bought in Oregon, in Estacada, just outside of Estacada. Was a great house, got a pretty good deal in a way, but really didn't have a clue what was going on in the mortgage and the housing industry and the economy and all that, and pretty quickly had to realize what was really going on and figure out how to survive, through that. Trying to hold on to my dream, my dream job, my dream business. And that was a tough one. 2008 to 2013, just struggled, turned my nursery into a small farm, gardening, as much as we could grow for our own produce. I raised over 300-day-old chickens and started a chicken farm selling eggs and chickens, and got onto the board of the local farmers market, and was selling at the farmers market, any of the nursery plants I could, anything I could sell, produce, chickens, eggs, plants, and just struggled, even looked for jobs, but we were unfortunately in a area where the economy was hit really hard, comparatively to some of the areas, especially where I came from, where I used to live in Bellevue, where I grew up, the Seattle area of Washington. And we were in a area where the logging mill had moved out, and houses would just sit for years in foreclosure and auction mode where no one was even buying them at all. And it just was tough. I couldn't get a job. I started doing small landscape jobs for people, farm work, handiwork, and it just wasn't panning out. 2013, we were still just struggling. So we ended up moving back to Washington with our son, who was by this time, turning 9 years old. Got him to school, went back to work at the family business, and had sold off the liquidated everything we could, whatever. Actually went through bankruptcy with the farm, and the debt that we had, at the time, accumulated from the struggling and through all sorts of things, alcoholism, the typical, I guess you could say, struggle that so many of us go through, addiction, and came back to work at the family business, got back on track, got healthy, stopped drinking, and tried to figure out what the hell I was gonna do. Completely changed lifestyle, back to the city life, working indoors. And just after a while, I'm just like, working at my family business has not been my thing most of my life. It's not something I incredibly enjoy, and just a lot of difficulties for me there. So I ended up leaving again, which I had done 20 years previously, and went to work for my friend and his business, doing service and repair on hot tubs and swim spas, and did that for a few years, and kind of found that to be, for me, seemingly, a dead-end job, I guess you could say. Really wasn't much progression for me personally there, and really didn't seem to be a place where I could grow anymore. So I decided, hey, I'm gonna go back to what I have always wanted to do, is be my own boss and run my own company. And by this time, I've read over the years so many business books, and I've been through, a lot of different situations. So I've definitely learned a lot compared to when I was first starting out, with my dream, and or even just working just to get by, with jobs that people would kind of offer me, handy. I've done, painting, remodeling, plumbing, tile. I've done it all, as far as home remodel and services. And I wouldn't say I've done it all, but I've done so much of it, in that realm. I was like, hey, I need to really get a business going. I need to build a business. I need to use what I know and grow and have the balls to like actually do something other than just getting by, paycheck to paycheck kind of situation. And came up with the proposal to myself that I'm gonna start a business where I'm gonna grow it enough to where I have a team of people that's not just dependent on me to actually run the business. I'm talking long term right now, but so where I'm at right now is I've built the bones, the structure. I have a pretty concrete plan of what to do and what I want to do, but I also need to find where it takes itself in a way and go with the flow, of course. But yeah, that's where I am right now. I've built somewhat of a structure of my business. I have some pretty good ideas of what I want to do. And I need to go in just a bit because I've got a small job today and a quote to do, a quote. But I just wanted to check in and kind of drop my story a little bit. It's been a minute. It's been kind of a rainy several weeks in the Pacific Northwest where we go from beautiful weather to kind of stormy, dark, windy, wet, cold. And just kind of been laying low, waiting for my contractor license to actually come through, and so I could really be official and advertise, promote myself, finalize business structure, logo, things like that. And so I'm here. I got my license. It's been issued. I have my contractor number. I've been bonded and insured for over a month, kind of waiting for this all to fall through into place, at least not fall through, but fall into place. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm nervous sometimes, but I'm pretty damn confident. I'm going to be able to build this business, come springtime. I should be just overwhelmed with work. I have lots of potential past clients, people I know, and places I can go with this. And I should get busy enough to the point where I could hire a crew of people to do the actual work as I oversee the business and grow the business. I'm not going to be wearing all the hats in this thing. Where I'm at right now is I have to start proving to people, really what I need to do is get good reviews online. It's like the thing these days. I used to just do work by referral only. I never advertised in the past, but now I'm having to promote myself and advertise, kind of starting over, in a way. Although I've been in this industry really for a little over 27 years, I've got to prove myself. I'm a new kid on the block, and it's kind of a strange, weird kind of, it's like being born again in a way. It's like you got to learn how to walk, but everything's new. It's different. I didn't used to rely on social media and advertising and promoting myself, which I've really never been that great at. So this is like, all this stuff entails of starting your own business, becoming a general contractor, learning all the stuff you got to know about, all the contract stuff you got to have, insurance, all the documentation, running your business through a CRM, things I'm not, things I didn't really do in the past because the technology and the times were different when I ran my businesses in the past. And I've gone through some other employment situations in the last 10 years to where I really missed the boat on a lot of this stuff. So I'm catching up. Getting up to speed, and I'm gonna have to show that I can actually do this to people around me, and to my potential clients that, one, I do have the knowledge and I have the drive, and I'm going to have to prove to people to be willing to come onto my team as I hire on, and keeping my business standards and all that intact as I grow my business and outsource things that I personally am not going to be responsible for. Like I said, I'm not going to be able to wear too many hats. This is something I want to grow much bigger than I have had in the past, and albeit in the landscape realm or in home remodel realm, or actually maybe it'll split and divide into two different businesses at some point. But I need to grow it. My goal really is to grow the business into something other than just me being the serviceman, the guy that does all the work. I'm gonna build this thing so I can step away. I'm not the only one that is required to be in charge and doing everything and completely responsible. It's going to be it's going to be a team thing. It's going to be a business, or it's just not my job. It's I'm going to be a part of a team, but if something were to happen to me, or if I want to step away or sell the business, eventually it's going to be operating on its own, with all the team members contributing, of course. And that's the goal, really. It's moving up, moving on, and building great things. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm going to run and do my quote for the day and get my job started in these short Pacific Northwest days where the sun's only out until about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon right now with the time change. And other than that, I'm getting ready for snowboard season, which is, if you know me, that's a big thing. All right, y'all. Glad to share my story. Hope you appreciate me sharing it. And give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a follow, share this with anybody you want. And I hope maybe my story, if you follow along, can inspire somebody and help somebody who is interested in doing similar things. Peace out, y'all.